I was already awake before the yelling started. That happens when you reach my age. Sleep turns light, like it's afraid to stay too long. The house was quiet, that fake peaceful quiet right before trouble shows up uninvited. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my robe pulled tight, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold, thinking about how strange it feels to live in a place you no longer feel safe in, even though your name is still on every damn document. Then at exactly 6 in the morning, the screaming hit. Not a knock. Not a doorbell. Screaming. My daughter-in-law's voice cut through the walls like a siren, sharp and angry, yelling my name over and over like she was summoning me to court. She sounded hysterical, but not scared. Oh no. This was rage. Entitlement. The kind of noise someone makes when they believe something belongs to them, and it's being taken away. I didn't move right away. I just sat there and listened. That porch had heard a lot over the years, birthday laughter, Christmas arguments, my late husband's boots thudding across it every evening. Now it was hearing threats dressed up as family concern. I wrapped my fingers tighter around that mug and felt my heartbeat settle instead of spike. That's how I knew something had changed in me. Because a few months ago, I would have rushed to the door apologizing. Apologizing for existing. Apologizing for being old. Apologizing for being in the way of their plans. But not that morning. That morning, I'd already done what needed doing. The locks were new. Every single one. Front door. Back door. Garage. Even the side entry they used to sneak through like they owned the place. I'd had them changed the day before, quiet and clean, with a locksmith who didn't ask questions and a check that cleared without a blink. The screaming got louder. Open the door, she shrieked, pounding now. You can't do this to us. I smiled. Just a little. Not because it was funny, but because for the first time in years, her words had no power over me. She kept yelling about respect, about family, about how I was being dramatic. Funny how people only talk about respect when they are losing control. Funny how family only matters when you finally say no. Then I heard a car door slam. Heavy. Aggressive. I didn't even have to look out the window to know who it was. My son. The same boy I carried for 9 months. The same kid whose scraped knees I kissed, whose college tuition I paid, whose wedding I funded even when his bride looked at me like I was already an inconvenience. Somewhere along the way, love turned into leverage, and I let it happen longer than I should have. I heard his footsteps storm up the driveway. And then his voice, deeper now, colder, stripped of anything soft. Mom, he shouted, open the damn door. We are not playing this game. Game? That word hit harder than the yelling. Because that's what this had been to them all along. A waiting game. Waiting for me to get tired. Waiting for me to get confused. Waiting for me to sign something I didn't fully read just to keep the peace. I stood up slowly and walked toward the door. Not to open it, not yet, but to stand behind it. To feel the solid weight of it between us. To remind myself that wood and steel were finally on my side. I know you're in there, my daughter-in-law yelled. You don't get to lock us out of what's ours. Ours. That house was built with my husband's overtime checks and my sleepless nights. I picked the tile. I painted those walls twice. I paid the taxes long before they ever sniffed around my bank statements. But somehow, without me noticing, the story had changed. I was just the old woman living in it. That's when I heard metal scrape against concrete. My stomach didn't flip, it hardened. Because I knew that sound. A sledgehammer being dragged out of a trunk. You've got 5 seconds, my son barked. Or I'm coming in. I closed my eyes for a brief second, not to pray, but to remember. Every comment they made when they thought I couldn't hear. Every late-night whisper about nursing homes, and what we'll do once she's out. Every time my daughter-in-law corrected me in my own kitchen like I was a child. 5 seconds. 4. 3. That was when I heard footsteps behind me inside the house. Calm. Unrushed. A presence. I didn't turn around right away. I didn't need to. I knew those steps the same way you know a song from the first note. Steady. Confident. Protective without being loud about it. My brother. He'd arrived late the night before, quiet as ever, said he just wanted to check on me. He hadn't asked questions. He hadn't needed to. He saw the bruises on my spirit the way some people see weather changing. My son was still yelling outside, threatening to smash his way in like he wasn't talking to the woman who raised him. Then my brother spoke. "Don't touch the door," he said, voice low and solid behind me. "I've got this." I reached for the handle anyway, not to defy him, but because this was my moment too. I deserved to see their faces when control slipped through their fingers. When the door opened, the screaming stopped. Dead quiet. I saw my daughter-in-law's mouth fall open first. Her eyes flicked past me, then froze. My son's grip tightened on the sledgehammer, then loosened. He hadn't expected backup. He hadn't expected witnesses. And he definitely hadn't expected the kind of man my brother is, the kind who doesn't argue, doesn't threaten, and doesn't bluff. In that silence, standing in my own doorway with my past and my future colliding at once, I finally understood something that took me way too long to learn. They never thought I'd fight back. And they had no idea how much I already knew. The look on their faces told me this was only the beginning, and that whatever came next was going to change our family forever. Nobody said a word at first. Not me. Not my son. Not his wife. The only sound was the morning wind brushing the porch, and that sledgehammer slipping out of my son's hands, hitting the concrete with a dull, ugly thud. That sound felt like a verdict. My daughter-in-law was the first to recover. She always was quick like that, quick to twist, quick to blame, quick to pretend she wasn't doing exactly what she was doing. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, forcing out a laugh that shook at the edges. "You called muscle now. Really? What are you trying to do, scare us?" My brother didn't even look at her. He looked at my son. "You raised your hand to this door again," he said calm as Sunday morning, "and I'll be the one calling the police. Not her." That landed heavy. My son swallowed. I could see it in his throat. He suddenly looked younger, smaller, not a grown man with kids, but a boy caught doing something ugly with no excuse left to hide behind. "Mom," he said, softer now, like volume alone could erase what just happened. "Let's talk. This doesn't need to get crazy." Crazy. That word again. Funny how standing up for yourself is always crazy to the people who benefit from you staying quiet. I stepped forward then. Not shaking. Not crying. Standing tall in slippers and a robe like I owned the ground under my feet, because I did. "You don't get to yell my name at 6 in the morning," I said. My voice surprised even me. Steady. Sharp. "You don't get to threaten my door. And you sure as hell don't get to tell me what I need." My daughter-in-law crossed her arms, eyes darting around like she was already planning her next move. "We were worried," she said. "You changed the locks without telling us. That's not normal behavior." I laughed. A real laugh. Short and bitter. "What's not normal," I said, "is going through my mail. What's not normal is selling my things. What's not normal is talking about nursing homes behind my back like I'm already dead." My son flinched. That told me everything. "So you do know," he muttered. "Oh, I know plenty," I said. Enough to finally stop doubting myself. For 3 months, they'd worked me down slow. Not all at once. Oh no. They were smarter than that. First it was suggestions. Then concerns. Then jokes. Then paperwork left on the table by accident. Then comments about how forgetful I'd become. I wasn't forgetful. I was being groomed. "You made me feel like a burden in my own home," I continued. "You corrected me in front of my grandchildren. You told me I shouldn't manage my own money anymore. And every time I pushed back, you called me difficult." My daughter-in-law scoffed. We were helping you. No, my brother cut in. You were circling. That shut her up. My son stepped closer to the door, hands raised now, playing peacemaker, like he hadn't just brought a sledgehammer to his mother's house. Mom, listen, he said. We just wanted what's best for everyone. You can't live alone forever. I'm not alone, I said. I'm just not under your control anymore. That's when her face changed. Not angry. Panicked. Because control was the only thing keeping her plans upright. You can't lock us out, she snapped. We live here. No, I corrected her. You stay here. Big difference. She opened her mouth to argue again, and that's when another car pulled up behind theirs. Slow. Clean. Professional. A man stepped out in a grey suit, carrying a briefcase like he'd done it 1,000 times before. My attorney. The look on their faces was priceless. What's this? My son asked, voice cracking just a little. I stepped aside so the man could come forward. This, I said, is what happens when an old woman finally stops trusting people just because they share her blood. The attorney introduced himself, calm and polite, like this was just another Tuesday. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Mrs. Sullivan, he said, nodding at me, would you like me to explain things here, or inside? Here's fine, I said. They don't need another invitation into my home. My daughter-in-law's lips pressed into a thin line. Explain what? The attorney opened his briefcase. Ownership, he said. Access. Authority. My son's face drained of color. You went behind our backs, he whispered. No, I said. I went in front of my future. The attorney continued, as of last week, Mrs. Sullivan's property and assets are protected under a legal trust. Any attempt to enter, modify, sell, or remove items from this home without her consent constitutes trespassing and theft. My daughter-in-law exploded. That's insane. He's her son. And I'm still alive, I snapped. That seems to bother you more than it should. My son stared at the papers like they were written in another language. You did all this without telling us. I tried telling you I was uncomfortable, I said. You told me I was confused. Silence dropped again, heavier than before. The attorney closed the briefcase. There's more, he said. And that was the moment, the exact moment, I saw fear finally win. Because whatever else was coming, they weren't ready for it. And neither was I, not for how far this betrayal really went. The funny thing about silence is this. It screams louder than yelling ever could. They stood there frozen on my porch, staring at that briefcase like it was a coffin with their names already engraved on it. My son's knuckles were white. My daughter-in-law's jaw was tight, working side to side like she was chewing on panic. I'd seen that look before. Right before someone starts lying. Mom, my son said finally, voice cracking in a way that almost sounded sincere. Almost. You didn't have to go this far. I smiled, slow, tired, and done. Oh sweetheart, I said, you went far first. I just finally caught up. The attorney stepped forward again, calm as a man ordering lunch. Mrs. Sullivan asked me to prepare a full review of recent financial activity connected to her accounts and property. My daughter-in-law laughed sharp. That's illegal. You can't just. Yes, we can, he said, cutting her clean in half. Because the accounts are hers. Always have been. That's when my brother spoke again, low and deadly quiet. You two really thought she didn't notice. My son snapped his head toward him. Stay out of this. Oh no, my brother said. I stayed out long enough. I watched her doubt herself. I watched her apologize for breathing. I watched you drain her one small favor at a time. That hit harder than anything I could have said. Because it was true. It didn't start with money. It started with access. Can you add us to your account? Just in case. Let me hold onto your documents so you don't lose them. You don't really need that old china, do you? Piece by piece they took. And piece by piece, I let them, because mothers are trained to sacrifice until there's nothing left but guilt. The attorney opened a folder and pulled out papers. Over the last 3 months, he said, there were withdrawals totaling $15,000. My daughter-in-law's eyes flicked to my son. Fast. Too fast. That money was for emergencies, she snapped. You approved it. No, I said calmly. You told me you had a medical issue. Her mouth opened. Closed. My son finally looked at her. You said it was hospital bills. She shrugged, desperate now. I needed it. The attorney didn't blink. That is considered fraud. The word hung in the air like smoke. Fraud. My son staggered back a step like someone had shoved him. Mom, is that true? I nodded once. I checked everything. Because here's the thing, when an old woman stops crying, she starts investigating. I read bank statements at midnight. I printed records. I took photos of missing items. I remembered everything they said I forgot. There's also the matter of unauthorized sales, the attorney continued. Furniture. Jewelry. Personal heirlooms. That was clutter, my daughter-in-law snapped. She didn't even use it. That clutter belonged to my husband, I said. And he's not here to defend himself, so I will. My son ran his hands through his hair, breathing hard. Mom, this is getting out of control. No, I said. This is it finally being under control. The attorney closed the folder. Mrs. Sullivan has 2 options, he said. Proceed legally, or allow voluntary repayment. My daughter-in-law scoffed. We don't have that kind of money. You had it when you took it, my brother said flatly. Silence again. Thick. Heavy. Real. Then my son dropped his head. I didn't know it was this bad, he whispered. And that was it. That sentence. The lie he told himself, so he could sleep at night. You knew, I said quietly. You just didn't want to look too close. He looked up at me then, eyes red. I was scared. So was I said. But I didn't steal. My daughter-in-law snapped. You're choosing paperwork over your own son. I stepped closer, close enough she had to look at me. I'm choosing dignity over betrayal. She exploded then. You were going to end up in a home anyway. There it was. Out loud. Ugly. Honest. Finally exposed. My son spun toward her. You said we were helping her stay longer. She screamed back, don't act innocent now. And that's when I realized something painful and freeing all at once. They were never a team. They were co-conspirators waiting to turn on each other. The attorney cleared his throat. Mrs. Sullivan. I straightened my shoulders. Yes. Would you like to proceed? I looked at my son. The boy I raised. The man who failed me. And I felt it, not anger. Clarity. I want them out of my house, I said. 48 hours. My son's head snapped up. What? You heard me. My daughter-in-law laughed hysterical. You can't just throw us out. Yes, the attorney said smoothly. She can. My son's voice broke. Mom, please. I shook my head. I begged first. You didn't listen. The attorney added quietly, if repayment is not made within 30 days, legal action will follow. My daughter-in-law turned pale. My son looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Get your things, I said. Only what's yours. And the kids, my son whispered. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed firm. They can visit. I won't be used against myself. My brother stepped forward, standing beside me. You're done here. They walked back to their car in silence. No yelling. No threats. Just the sound of a plan collapsing. As they pulled away, my knees finally shook. But I didn't fall. Because for the first time in months, the house felt like mine again. And yet, deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because people who lose control never leave quietly. And the next move they made was going to be the dirtiest one yet. After they drove off, the house didn't magically feel peaceful. It felt hollow. That's the part nobody tells you. When you finally stand up for yourself, the silence afterward can feel heavier than the abuse itself. The walls still held their voices. The air still remembered the arguments. Every corner had fingerprints of disrespect. I stood there in the entryway for a long minute, key still clenched in my hand, listening to my own breathing like it was proof I was still here. My brother broke the quiet first. "You okay, sis?" I nodded, even though my knees were trembling. "I will be." That answer wasn't for him. It was for me. The attorney packed his papers neatly, like he'd just finished another day at the office instead of watching a family crack in half. Before leaving, he paused and looked at me with something close to respect. "You did the right thing," he said. "Most people wait too long." I smiled faintly. I already did. When the door finally closed behind them, I locked it. Then I locked it again. Then I checked every window like I was 20 years younger and scared of the dark. That night, I didn't cook. Didn't clean. Didn't cry. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea, staring at the scratches in the wood, scratches I remembered making when my son was little and dragging chairs across the floor. Back when messes were innocent. Back when love wasn't conditional. I didn't regret protecting myself. But I mourned who I thought my son was. Around midnight, I heard footsteps upstairs. Drawers opening. Suitcases zipping. Muted arguments slipping through the vents. Every sound twisted my chest, but I stayed seated. I wasn't going to supervise my own eviction from their lives. At some point, exhaustion won. I fell asleep at the table. And for the first time in months, I slept all the way through the night. No anxiety dreams. No racing thoughts. No fear of waking up to another accusation. Morning came soft and quiet. Sunlight spilled into the kitchen like it was checking on me. I stood, stretched my aching back, and made myself breakfast, real breakfast. Eggs. Toast. Coffee exactly the way I like it, not watered down to please someone else's stomach. Halfway through my cup, there was a knock. Not pounding. Not yelling. Just a knock. When I opened the door, my son stood there alone. Eyes swollen. Shoulders slumped. No sledgehammer this time. Just regret, heavy and useless. "Can I come in?" he asked. I shook my head. "Talk here." That boundary felt strange on my tongue, but good. "I messed up," he said. "I know that now." I waited. "I should have protected you," he continued. "I let things get out of hand." "You didn't let them," I said quietly. "You participated." He swallowed. "She pushed me. And you followed." Silence again. Then he asked the question that finally broke him. "Do you hate me?" I looked at him, really looked. The man standing where my boy used to be. "No," I said. "But I don't trust you." His face crumpled. "That hurts worse," he whispered. "It should," I replied. "It hurt me first." He nodded slowly, like someone finally understanding a language they ignored too long. "I'll get the money back," he said. "I swear." "I expect you to," I answered. "Not because I need it, but because you need to learn what accountability feels like." He wiped his face, nodded once more, and walked away. Upstairs, the rest of the day passed with boxes moving, doors opening and closing, life packing itself into cardboard. I stayed downstairs. I didn't hover. I didn't intervene. I let consequences do their job. In the afternoon, my granddaughter came down quietly. Eyes red. Hands shaking. "Grandma," she whispered. "I'm sorry." I opened my arms, and she melted into me like she'd been holding her breath for months. "You did nothing wrong," I told her. "Nothing." "I heard things," she admitted. I didn't know how to stop it. That's not your burden, I said firmly. Adults fix adult messes. She hugged me tighter. And in that moment, I knew I'd done the right thing. Even if it hurt. By evening, the house was quiet again. Really quiet this time. I walked through every room slowly, reclaiming each one. I opened windows. I straightened picture frames. I picked up a vase they'd shoved aside and placed it back where it belonged. That night, I went to bed early. I locked my door. And for the first time since all this started, I didn't flinch at every sound. Because no matter what came next, apologies, anger, guilt, or silence, one thing was finally true. I was safe in my own home. And whatever storms were still brewing outside these walls, they would have to face me on my terms now. By the third morning, the house didn't smell like tension anymore. It smelled like dust, cardboard, and old memories being disturbed, which, honestly, felt healthier than fear. I woke up before sunrise, same as always. Old habits don't die just because your heart finally grows a backbone. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long moment, listening. No footsteps upstairs. No whispered fights. No drawers slamming like punctuation marks in an argument. Just quiet. Not the scary kind. The earned kind. I made my way downstairs slowly, my joints reminding me I wasn't young enough to pretend none of this took a toll. The living room looked stripped down, almost naked. Empty spaces on the walls where framed photos had been taken down. The bookshelf half cleared. The rug rolled up like it was ready to leave too. But the bones of the house were still mine. I ran my hand along the banister, feeling the smooth spot worn down from decades of palms sliding across it. This place remembered me, even if the people inside had tried to erase me. Around 9, a moving truck pulled up. I didn't rush to the window. I didn't hide either. I poured myself another cup of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table like a woman who had nowhere else she needed to be. Voices drifted in through the open window. Low. Careful. No shouting this time. Just the sound of life being dismantled. That's when I realized something important. They weren't angry anymore. They were scared. Anger is loud. Fear is quiet and efficient. A little before noon, my daughter-in-law finally came inside. She didn't look at me at first. Just walked straight to the cabinet, where she'd packed away some paperwork weeks ago. I cleared my throat. She froze. I need my documents, she said stiffly. You'll get what belongs to you, I replied. Nothing more. She turned then, eyes sharp, face drawn thin. You really ruined everything. I didn't flinch. No. I stopped letting you ruin me. She scoffed. You think this makes you strong? I looked her dead in the eye. I know it does. For a second, something ugly and desperate flashed across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that fake calm people use when they know the game's over. She grabbed her folder and left without another word. I didn't follow. Didn't need closure from someone who never offered truth. Later that afternoon, my brother came back. He brought groceries like I was recovering from surgery instead of betrayal. You shouldn't be alone today, he said. I'm not, I replied. I'm with myself again. That made him smile. We sat at the table together, eating soup like we were kids again, the world simpler and quieter than it had any right to be. He didn't push. Didn't lecture. Just kept me company. That trust you set up, he said carefully. Smart move. It was necessary, I answered. I won't be cornered again. He nodded. Proud of you. That word hit harder than I expected. Proud. By late afternoon, the truck was nearly full. I stood by the window this time, watching them load the last of their boxes. My son looked thinner. Older. Like consequences had finally settled into his shoulders. He caught sight of me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he walked up to the door and knocked, soft this time. I opened it but didn't step aside. We are leaving, he said unnecessarily. I see that. He swallowed. I brought something. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. 3,000, he said. It's all I have right now. I took it without ceremony. You have 30 days for the rest. I know. He hesitated. Can I hug you? That question hurt more than his anger ever did. I shook my head slowly. Not yet. His eyes filled. He nodded, accepting the boundary like a man finally learning the shape of the word no. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't rewind time. He stepped back. As he turned to leave, he stopped. I don't expect forgiveness. That's good, I replied. Because forgiveness isn't owed. It's earned. He walked away then, shoulders hunched, and climbed into the truck. When they finally pulled off, dust swirling in their wake, I didn't wave. I closed the door. Locked it. And leaned my forehead against the wood for just a second, not in weakness, but release. That evening, I walked through the house room by room. I opened drawers. Straightened shelves. Put things back where I liked them. I pulled an old quilt from the closet, the one my husband and I bought on a road trip years ago, and spread it across the couch. It felt like reclaiming territory after a long war. That night, I cooked a full dinner. Lasagna, just like my mother used to make. I played old music, the kind that fills a house instead of crowding it. I ate slowly. I didn't rush. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for the next attack. Still, deep in my gut, I knew something wasn't settled yet. Because when people lose access to control, they don't always disappear. Sometimes they come back with stories, with excuses, with pressure wearing a kinder mask. And I had a feeling the hardest test of my strength was still ahead. I should have known peace never comes without paperwork. 3 days after the moving truck disappeared, I was standing in my kitchen barefoot, flipping pancakes, when the doorbell rang. Not a polite ding. A long, pressed-down ring. The kind that says I'm here to take something, not hello. I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door. 2 people stood there. One was my daughter-in-law's father, stiff posture, fake smile, wearing a jacket like he was headed to court instead of my porch. The other was a woman I'd never seen before. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, clipboard hugged to her chest like a shield. Mrs. Sullivan, the woman asked. That's me. I'm with Adult Family Services. I felt my spine stiffen, but I didn't step back. All right. What can I do for you? She glanced down at her clipboard. We received a report expressing concern about your mental well-being and living conditions. There it was. The lie dressed up as concern. My daughter-in-law's father cleared his throat. We are just worried about you, he said softly. Too softly. Like a man reading from a script. You've been through a lot. Loss? Stress? Family conflict. We thought it might help to have someone check in. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I opened the door wider. Come on in. You might as well see the crime scene for yourselves. The social worker hesitated, then stepped inside. Her eyes moved quickly, clean floors, fresh curtains, groceries on the counter, no smell of neglect, no chaos. She checked boxes in her head, I could tell. Do you live alone? She asked. Yes. Are you able to manage daily tasks? Cooking, hygiene, finances. I made pancakes 10 minutes ago, I showered this morning, and my finances are locked tighter than Fort Knox. That earned me the smallest flicker of a smile from her. My daughter-in-law's father shifted. She's been confused before. Emotional. She accused her own son of terrible things. I turned slowly and looked him dead in the face. I accused my son of things he admitted to doing, I said evenly. There's a difference. The social worker's pen paused. Is that so? She asked. Yes, I replied. And if you'd like documentation, my attorney will be happy to provide it. That did it. The woman finally looked up fully, studying me, not like a fragile old lady, but like someone recalibrating a bad assumption. Mrs. Sullivan, she said carefully, has anyone pressured you to move into assisted living or sign over assets recently? I didn't miss the way my daughter-in-law's father stiffened. Yes, I answered. And the attempt failed. Silence stretched thick as syrup. I see, she said, making another note. I'll need to speak with you privately. That won't be necessary, I replied. He can hear every word. Her eyes flicked between us, then she nodded. All right. Have you felt unsafe in your home? I met her gaze. Not anymore. Have you been threatened? Yes. By whom? My own family. That landed. She closed the folder slowly. Based on what I'm seeing today, there's no indication of neglect or incapacity. My daughter-in-law's father's mouth tightened. Surely you're not dismissing this so quickly. She stood. I'm not dismissing anything. I'm documenting reality. He opened his mouth to argue. I stepped forward. You don't get to decide I'm broken just because I stopped obeying, I said quietly. And you don't get to use the system as a weapon because your plan failed. He stared at me like he'd never actually seen me before. The social worker turned to me. If anyone contacts you again in this manner, call us directly. False reports are taken seriously. She handed me a card. When the door finally closed behind them, my hands started to shake. Not from fear. From rage. I sat down at the table and let it pass through me instead of swallowing it like I used to. That afternoon, I called my brother. They tried to paint me as incompetent, I said. He sighed. I figured they'd try something slimy. I want this stopped. It will be, he said. But you need to be ready. When control fails, character shows. And theirs isn't pretty. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You didn't have to take it this far. I stared at the screen. Another message followed. We were trying to help you. Then another. The kids are asking why you hate their parents. That one hit low. I typed back slowly. Do not contact me again. All communication goes through my attorney. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. The next morning, I woke to a knock at the door. Not loud. Not angry. Measured. Official. When I opened it, a man in a suit stood there holding an envelope. Mrs. Sullivan, he said, you've been served. My stomach dropped, but my face stayed still. What is it? He hesitated. A petition challenging your competency and the validity of your trust. I took the papers. Closed the door. And stood there in the quiet house, realizing they weren't done trying to take my life apart, they were just switching tactics. And this time, they brought lawyers instead of lies. I didn't cry when I got served. That surprised even me. I stood there in my hallway, papers in hand, sunlight coming through the window like nothing in the world had shifted. Like my house hadn't just been declared a battlefield. A younger version of me would have sat down. Panicked. Called my son. Tried to talk it out. That woman was dead. This one made coffee. I sat at my dining table, reading every word slow and careful. Petition to challenge mental capacity. Request for emergency review. Allegation of undue influence. Undue influence. As if someone twisted my arm into protecting myself. As if I couldn't think on my own at 68. I picked up the phone and called Mr. Sterling. He answered on the second ring. I was expecting this. Of course you were, I said. Tell me they don't have a leg to stand on. They don't, he replied. But that won't stop them from trying to make noise. They are saying I'm unfit. They are saying whatever they need to say to get leverage. I closed my eyes. What happens next? They want a hearing. They want to scare you into settling. Or folding. Well, I said calmly, they picked the wrong old lady. He chuckled once. I'll file a response today. But Margaret, I need you ready. For what? For them to lie harder than they ever have. 2 days later, the call started. Not from my son. Not from Jennifer. From people I barely remembered. Hey, just checking on you. I heard you've been having a rough time. Do you really feel safe living alone? The whisper campaign. Plant doubt. Shake confidence. Make me look unstable by repetition alone. At the grocery store, Mrs. Henson from 3 doors down leaned in and whispered, your family's worried about you. I smiled. They should be. She blinked. They should be worried, I continued, about explaining themselves under oath. That shut her up. That night, I sat on my bed holding Robert's old watch in my palm. They are trying to erase me, I whispered. Like I'm a mistake they need corrected. I half expected silence. Instead, I felt steady. Strong. The morning of the hearing, I dressed slow and intentional. Navy blue blouse. Pearl earrings. Lipstick just dark enough to mean business. I didn't want to look fragile. I wanted to look undeniable. When I walked into that courtroom, I felt eyes on me. Curious. Judging. Measuring. Christopher sat on the other side, hands clasped, face hollow. Jennifer wasn't there. Coward. Her lawyer stood instead, smooth voice, clean suit, fake concern dripping off every word. He painted a picture. A lonely widow. Emotional distress. Erratic decisions. Influenced by outsiders. Sudden hostility toward her own family. Then it was my turn. Mr. Sterling stood. Mrs. Sullivan, he said gently, can you tell the court why you created the trust? I didn't rush. I created it, I said clearly, because my son and his wife planned to take my home, my money, and my autonomy while I was still breathing. A murmur rippled through the room. The opposing lawyer objected. Speculation. Mr. Sterling smiled. We have recordings. Silence hit like a hammer. The judge raised an eyebrow. Recordings? Yes, Your Honor. They played them. Jennifer's voice filled the courtroom. Cold. Calculated. Cruel. We can put her in a cheap nursing home and sell the house. Christopher's voice followed. She's lived enough. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. When the recording stopped, the judge leaned back slowly. That, she said, does not sound like concern. The opposing lawyer scrambled. Your Honor, emotions were high. No, the judge cut in. What's high is entitlement. I exhaled for the first time in an hour. Then the judge turned to me. Mrs. Sullivan, do you understand the nature of your assets? Yes. Do you understand the consequences of placing them in trust? Yes. Did anyone coerce or pressure you to do so? No. I did it because I finally opened my eyes. She nodded. The petition is denied. Just like that. Denied. Christopher sagged in his chair. The judge wasn't done. I will also note, she continued, that filing false competency challenges carries consequences. I strongly advise restraint moving forward. Gavel down. Case closed. Outside the courtroom, Christopher finally spoke. Mom? I stopped but didn't turn around. I didn't know it would go this far, he said, voice cracking. You didn't care how far it went, I replied. As long as it ended with you winning. He swallowed. I lost everything. I turned then. No, I said softly. You gave it away. He reached out like he wanted to touch my arm. I stepped back. I hope you learn from this, I said. But you won't learn it from me. I walked away with my head high. That night, back in my house, I poured a glass of iced tea and sat on the porch. The stars were out. The locks were solid. The lies had finally hit a wall. But deep down, I knew something else too. People like Jennifer don't walk away defeated. They retreat. And when they come back meaner. And I had a feeling the next move wasn't going to come through a lawyer. It was going to come through blood. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was scared, that part of me had burned out weeks ago, but because my instincts wouldn't shut up. The kind that live in your bones after you've survived enough storms to recognize the air shift before lightning hits. Something was coming. At 5:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a call. A notification. Security camera, front door activity. I sat up slow, heart steady, clicked the feed. There they were. My son Mark and his wife Vanessa. And in Mark's hands, a sledgehammer. I didn't scream. Didn't panic. Didn't even curse. I swung my legs out of bed and stood. All right, I muttered. So this is how you wanna end it. Vanessa was shrieking already, pacing like a rabid animal, hair wild, pointing at my door like it personally offended her. She changed the locks. She thinks she won, she screamed. Mark raised the hammer. I'm coming in, he shouted. You hear me? I don't care anymore. That was the moment. The exact second when whatever was left of mother inside me finally stepped aside. I walked downstairs calm as Sunday morning. Every step felt solid. Intentional. When I reached the door, I didn't touch the handle. Instead, I spoke. You break that door, I said loudly, clearly, and you'll be arrested before the hammer hits the floor. Mark froze. Vanessa laughed. You don't have the guts. I smiled. Then I stepped aside. And the door opened from behind me. The color drained from their faces. Standing there wasn't just me. It was 3 police officers, Mr. Sterling, and a court clerk holding a clipboard. Vanessa staggered back like she'd been punched. What is this? She stammered. Mr. Sterling's voice was ice. This is the consequence portion of your choices. One officer stepped forward. Sir, put the hammer down. Slowly. Mark's hands shook. He dropped it. The sound echoed down the street. Vanessa started crying instantly. Loud. Dramatic. Desperate. This is abuse, she yelled. She's manipulating everyone. The clerk didn't even look up. She said, flipping a page, you're being served with a restraining order effective immediately. Vanessa screamed. No. You can't do this. This is our house. I finally stepped forward. No, I said quietly. This is my home. And you are trespassing. Mark looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. Mom. Eleanor, please. I tilted my head. You came here with a weapon, I said. Not a conversation. An officer placed cuffs on Mark's wrists. Vanessa collapsed onto the lawn. I didn't feel joy. I felt finality. They were escorted away. Neighbors peeked through blinds. Phones came out. But for the first time, I didn't shrink. I stood on my porch, back straight, robe tied tight, watching the wreckage roll away. Mr. Sterling handed me the last document. They are done, he said softly. They won't be back. I nodded. I know. When everyone left, I locked the door. Then I leaned against it. And I cried. Not because I lost my son. But because I finally chose myself. Weeks passed. The house got quieter. Then warmer. I painted the wall sage green. Hung my husband's photo back where it belonged. Fixed the porch step Mark never bothered to repair. I started living again. One afternoon, my granddaughter called. Grandma, she said, voice small. Can I come visit sometime? My throat tightened. Anytime, I whispered. This will always be your safe place. When the sun sets now, I sit on my porch with tea and listen to the wind. I don't wonder what I did wrong anymore. I know what I did right. I protected my dignity. I protected my peace. And I learned something too important not to share. Love doesn't give anyone permission to destroy you. Family doesn't mean surrender. And age doesn't make you weak, it makes you dangerous to underestimate. If this story hit home for you, if you've ever been pushed aside, silenced, or treated like your life was already over, you're not alone. And it's not too late. White right pointing backhand index. Subscribe for more real stories like this, stories about standing up, drawing lines, and taking your life back. Because no matter how old you are, your door is still yours to open, or slam shut.